My name is Jarvis, and I want to tell you about the day my family tried to steal my house. Yes, you heard that right, steal. But let me back up because this whole mess started on what should have been a peaceful Saturday morning in my Chicago apartment. I'm 32, single, and I guess you could say I've always been the family's go-to ATM. My parents, Robert and Linda Martinez, are in their late 50s and have perfected the art of making their problems everyone else's responsibility, specifically mine. Then there's my younger sister, Natalie, 26 and married to her college sweetheart, Derek. She's always been the golden child, the one who could do no wrong while I was expected to quietly solve everyone's financial emergencies. 3 years ago, I bought a small cabin in the Wisconsin Dells. Nothing fancy, just a 2-bedroom place with a wraparound porch and a view of the lake. It was my sanctuary, my escape from the corporate grind of my marketing job downtown. I didn't get up there as often as I wanted, maybe once a month if I was lucky, but every time I walked through that door, I felt like I could finally breathe. That Saturday morning, my phone rang at 8 a.m. sharp. It was Tommy Rodriguez, the real estate agent who'd helped me buy the cabin. We'd built a good relationship over the years, and I'd promised him if I ever decided to sell, he'd get first dibs on the listing. "Hey Jarvis," he said, and I could hear the confusion in his voice. "I need to ask you something weird. Are you planning to sell your place up in the Dells? Because I just saw it listed on Zillow, and I thought we had an agreement." I nearly dropped my coffee mug. "What? Tommy, I have no idea what you're talking about. I'm not selling anything." "That's what I figured. Look, there's a listing that went live about a week ago. It's got all the right details about your place, the lake view, the updated kitchen, even mentions that weird little reading nook you love. But the contact info isn't yours." My stomach dropped. "Can you send me the link?" "Already did. And hey, if you do decide to sell for real, I've got a client who's been looking for exactly what you've got. Guy's a local fire chief, been searching for a quiet place by the water for months." After I hung up, I sat there staring at my phone, waiting for that link to come through. When it did and I clicked on it, I thought I was going to be sick. There was my cabin, clear as day, with photos I'd never taken and a description that was way too accurate for comfort. But the real kicker? The contact person listed was my mother, complete with her cell phone number. I didn't even hesitate. My hands were shaking as I dialed my parents' number. "Hi, sweetheart," Mom answered in that syrupy voice she uses when she knows she's about to get caught doing something wrong. "Mom, what the hell is this listing about my cabin?" There was a pause that felt like an eternity. Then she went completely calm. "Oh, you saw that? Well, yes, we posted it. We had to do something, Jarvis. You would never have agreed to sell it on your own." I was pacing around my apartment now, my bare feet slapping against the hardwood floors. Of course I wouldn't agree. It's my property. You can't just decide to sell someone else's house. That's when Dad's voice boomed in the background before Mom handed over the phone. "Jarvis, you need to think about family here. Remember when we asked for help with Natalie's wedding? We needed $25,000, and you only gave us $5. A good sister would have covered the whole thing." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. The audacity was breathtaking. "I gave you what I could afford at the time," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "And now you want to steal my house?" "It's not stealing," Mom took the phone back, her voice taking on that patronizing tone that had driven me crazy since childhood. "We're family, honey. Natalie barely has anything, and you hardly even use that place. We're up there more than you are anyway." That last part hit me like a slap. They'd been using my cabin without permission? That doesn't matter. It's still mine, Mom. "Jarvis, be reasonable. Your sister is pregnant now, 6 months along, and she needs help. Derek's teaching salary isn't enough for them to buy a decent place in Milwaukee. The money from your cabin would be perfect for a down payment on a nice condo near the good schools. This is what families do for each other." I tried to stay calm, tried to think logically. "Look, even if I wanted to do this, which I don't, you can't sell my house without my signature." Mom actually laughed. Actually laughed at me. "Oh sweetie, we've got that figured out." "What do you mean?" "We have copies of all your important documents, your driver's license, your social security card, examples of your signature from all those checks you've written us over the years. We've been handling some of your paperwork when you're too busy with work, remember? This won't be a problem at all. My blood ran cold. They were talking about committing fraud. Against me. Their own daughter. Dad jumped back on the line. We've been planning this for months, Jarvis. We know exactly what we're doing. Natalie's already picked out a condo in Wauwatosa. It's got 3 bedrooms, a finished basement, close to great schools. The baby deserves a good start in life. The baby that isn't even born yet? I was incredulous. Don't be selfish, Mom snapped. We raised you better than that. I hung up without another word. My hands were literally trembling as I set the phone down on my kitchen counter. For the next few minutes, I just sat there in my tiny breakfast nook, staring out at the Chicago skyline and trying to process what had just happened. My own parents, the people who were supposed to love and protect me, had just casually informed me they were planning to forge my signature and steal my property. And they acted like it was no big deal, like I was the unreasonable one for being upset about it. This was so typical of them. My entire adult life, they treated me like I existed solely to solve their problems. Need money for car repairs? Call Jarvis. Behind on the mortgage? Jarvis will help. Want to throw an expensive wedding? Jarvis can cover it. And I always did, because that's what I thought good daughters were supposed to do. But this was different. This wasn't them asking for help, this was them taking what they wanted without permission. This was theft, plain and simple. The more I thought about it, the angrier I got. They were probably sitting in their Kenosha ranch house right now, congratulating themselves on how cleverly they'd handled the situation. They probably thought I'd cry for a day or two, then eventually cave because family comes first, or whatever guilt trip they'd use next. They figured I'd never actually fight back, never call the police, never take them to court. After all, I never had before. Well, they were wrong. That's when I knew exactly what I had to do. If they wanted to race to sell my cabin, then we'd have a race. But I was going to win. I called Tommy back immediately, my heart pounding with a mixture of rage and determination. Hey, it's Jarvis again. About that buyer you mentioned, how serious is he? Pretty serious. Captain Williams has been looking for something exactly like your place for over a year. He's got cash ready to go. Why are you thinking about selling after all? Yeah, I am. And I need to do it fast. Like really fast. Tommy sounded surprised. How fast are we talking here? As fast as legally possible. If your buyer can close quickly, I'll knock $15,000 off the asking price, and I'll pay you a speed bonus on top of your regular commission if we can get this done within the week. There was a pause while Tommy processed this. If he's got his financing lined up and the inspection goes smoothly, we could potentially close by next Friday. That's cutting it close, but it's doable. Perfect. Make it happen. After I hung up with Tommy, I felt this weird rush of adrenaline coursing through my veins. For the first time in years, I was taking control instead of just reacting to whatever crisis my family had dumped in my lap. But I wasn't done. While I waited to hear back about Captain Williams, I logged into my online banking and started making some long overdue changes. First, I removed my parents' access to my accounts. Yeah, I'd given them access a few years back when Dad had that heart scare and Mom needed help managing their bills. That had clearly been a mistake. Then I did something I'd been thinking about for months, but never had the courage to follow through on. I canceled the automatic payment I'd been making toward their mortgage. For 2 solid years, I'd been covering their $600 monthly payment because they were struggling financially. Well, let's see how much they struggle when they have to actually pay their own bills for once. I also canceled the autopay for Mom's car insurance, Dad's prescription medications, and Natalie's student loan payments. If they wanted to treat me like a bank account instead of their daughter, then this bank was officially closed for business. Tommy called me back Sunday morning with good news. Captain Williams was ready to move fast. Apparently, he'd been pre-approved for a cash purchase and had been waiting for the right property to come along. The cabin was exactly what he'd been dreaming of for his retirement. We could close by Thursday if I could get all my paperwork together by Monday morning. That's perfect, I told Tommy. Let's do it. The next few days passed in a blur of paperwork, inspections, and phone calls. Captain Williams turned out to be this really nice guy in his 50s who'd spent 20 years with the Milwaukee Fire Department. He'd fallen in love with the cabin the moment he saw it, especially the stone fireplace and the deck overlooking the lake. He even asked if I'd be willing to leave some of the furniture, since it fit the place so perfectly. By Thursday afternoon, it was done. The cabin was sold, the money was in my account, and for the first time in months, I could breathe without feeling like there was a weight on my chest. The timing couldn't have been better, either. I'd been struggling with my own condo payments lately, thanks to all the money I'd been hemorrhaging to my family. This sale would let me pay off my mortgage completely and still have a nice cushion left over. For the first time since college, I wouldn't be living paycheck to paycheck. But the best part? My family had no idea what I'd done. I didn't tell anyone about the sale. Not my coworkers, not my few close friends, and definitely not my family. I just sat back and waited for them to figure out that their little scheme had failed spectacularly. I'll admit, there was a part of me that felt guilty about the whole thing. These were my parents, after all. And Natalie was pregnant. She probably did need help getting established. But then I'd remember how Mom had laughed when she told me they were planning to forge my signature, and the guilt would evaporate pretty quickly. They'd made their choice when they decided to treat me like a walking ATM instead of their daughter. They'd made their choice when they decided stealing from me was easier than asking for help. Now they were going to have to live with the consequences. 2 weeks went by, and I didn't hear a peep from them. I was starting to think maybe they'd found another way to get money for Natalie's condo, or maybe they'd just given up on the whole thing. Part of me was almost disappointed. I'd been looking forward to their reaction when they discovered what I'd done. I used those 2 weeks to get my life back on track. Without the constant drain of supporting my family, I suddenly had money left over after paying my bills. Real money. I opened a high-yield savings account and started putting away $1,000 a month. I bought new clothes for work, actual professional outfits instead of the discount stuff I'd been wearing for years. I even treated myself to dinner at that fancy steakhouse downtown that I'd always wanted to try. It felt strange, having control over my own finances for the first time in my adult life. I'd forgotten what it was like to buy something without having to calculate whether I'd have enough left over for groceries. But then, on a Tuesday morning, my peaceful new life came crashing down. My phone started ringing at 7 a.m. and didn't stop. First Mom, then Dad, then Natalie, then Mom again. I let them all go to voicemail at first. I was in the middle of getting ready for work and honestly wasn't in the mood to deal with whatever drama they'd cooked up now. But they kept calling. By the time I was putting on my makeup, my phone had buzzed with 6 missed calls and 3 voicemails. Finally, I answered when Mom called for the 4th time. "Jarvis, what is going on?" She sounded panicked, frantic in a way I'd never heard before. "I went to the cabin yesterday with some potential buyers, and there are new locks on all the doors. The key doesn't work anymore. Did you change the locks?" I kept my voice calm and even, like I was discussing the weather. "I sold the cabin, Mom." There was complete silence on the other end. Then she started laughing, but it wasn't a happy laugh. It was that nervous, hysterical laugh people do when their world is falling apart. "Very funny, Jarvis. But seriously, what's with the new locks? These buyers are getting impatient, and you're making everything more complicated than it needs to be." "I'm not joking. I sold the cabin last week. Those new locks were installed by the new owner. If you have questions about the property, you'll need to talk to Captain Williams. I don't own it anymore." And then I hung up. After that call, I thought maybe I'd have a few hours of peace while they processed the news. I was wrong. My phone started ringing again almost immediately, but this time it was Natalie. I let it ring a few times before I picked up. I wasn't really in the mood for her drama, but I was curious to see how she'd handle the news. "Jarvis, what the hell is going on?" Natalie's voice was high and panicky, like a teenager who'd just been caught sneaking out. "Mom just called me crying, saying something about new locks at the cabin. She's not making any sense." "The cabin is sold, Natalie. I sold it last week." "That's not funny. We've been planning this for months. I already put a deposit down on the condo in Wauwatosa. I've been looking at cribs and baby furniture online. Derek and I even hired an interior designer to help with the nursery. You can't just sell the cabin now." The entitlement was breathtaking. "I can sell my own property whenever I want to, Natalie. It was never yours to begin with. But we need that money." Her voice cracked like she was about to cry. "I'm pregnant, Jarvis. We're trying to start a family here. We can't afford a decent place on Derek's teacher salary." Then maybe you and Derek should have thought about that before you decided to have a baby. Or maybe you should get jobs that actually pay enough to support the family you're planning. You're being cruel. Just give Mom the new keys so we can show the cabin to buyers. We can work this out somehow. There are no keys to give you, Natalie. The cabin belongs to Captain Williams now. Figure out your own life. And I hung up on her too. For the next few days, it was blissfully quiet. I actually started to think maybe they'd finally gotten the message and would leave me alone. I threw myself into work, stayed late at the office, and even went out for drinks with some colleagues on Friday night. I should have known better. The call came from Tommy on Monday morning, and he sounded really uncomfortable. Jarvis, I hate to bother you with this, but I got a call from Captain Williams. He said someone tried to break into the cabin over the weekend. The security system went off and scared them away, but the whole thing was caught on camera. My stomach dropped. Did they catch who it was? Tommy was quiet for a second. Yeah, they did. Jarvis, it was your father. The police arrested him. I just sat there in my office chair, trying to process what he'd just told me. My dad, my own father, had actually tried to break into the cabin. Even after I'd explicitly told them it was sold, even after Mom had seen the new locks herself, he'd still driven all the way up to Wisconsin and attempted to get in. Captain Williams wanted me to let you know what happened, Tommy continued. He's being pretty understanding about the whole situation since it's family, but legally speaking, your dad tried to break into a police captain's property. That's not going to look good for him. About 5 minutes after I hung up with Tommy, my phone rang again. It was Dad, and he sounded absolutely frantic. Jarvis, you need to call the police right now and explain that this is all a big misunderstanding. What misunderstanding, Dad? Tell them I was just trying to get into my daughter's cabin. Tell them you've always given me access to that property. This is all just a big mix-up. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Dad, I told you the cabin was sold. Why would you try to break in? We didn't think you were serious. We thought you were just mad and trying to scare us by changing the locks or something. We figured if we could just get inside and show it to buyers, we could straighten everything out. Well, I was serious, and now you're in trouble for trying to break into someone else's property. Jarvis, please, just call them and straighten this out. I can't afford a lawyer. I can't afford to go to jail. No, Dad. You did this to yourself. He started yelling at me then, calling me selfish and ungrateful, but I just hung up. I was done listening to their guilt trips and manipulation tactics. The next day, I saw the story on the local news website, local man arrested for attempted break-in at fire captain's vacation home. They didn't mention Dad's name, but they said the suspect had been belligerent during the arrest and had argued with the officers. He was facing charges for attempted burglary and disorderly conduct, and could potentially get up to 6 months in jail. A week later, Mom called me. She was crying before she even said hello. Jarvis, please. We need your help. We need money for a lawyer for your father. The public defender they assigned him is barely out of law school and doesn't understand the situation. Dad got himself into this mess, Mom. This is all your fault, she screamed, and I had to hold the phone away from my ear. If you hadn't sold the cabin, none of this would have happened. Your father wouldn't be facing jail time. Natalie wouldn't be stuck in that tiny apartment with a baby on the way. We can't make our mortgage payments anymore because you stopped helping us. You've destroyed this family. I actually started laughing. I couldn't help it. My fault? I sold my own property to prevent you from stealing it, and somehow I'm the bad guy here. You've ruined everything, Jarvis. Your father might go to prison. Your pregnant sister can't afford a decent place to raise her baby. We're going to lose our house. You've taken away our entire future. I've taken away your future? You were literally planning to forge my signature and steal my cabin. We're family. Family helps each other. Family doesn't steal from each other, Mom. You're an ungrateful daughter. After everything we've done for you, this is how you repay us. What exactly have you done for me, Mom? Besides expect me to pay for everything while you plan to rob me blind? She didn't have an answer for that. She just kept crying and calling me selfish and heartless. I don't want to have any relationship with any of you anymore, I told her. Don't call me again. After I hung up, I blocked all their numbers. Mom, Dad, Natalie, blocked. I was done. A month later, my Aunt Rachel called me. She's Dad's sister, and we've always had a decent relationship. She usually stays out of family drama, so I was curious about why she was calling. Jarvis, I just wanted to let you know what's been happening with your parents and sister, in case you want to know. I did want to know, despite everything. Natalie and Derek moved in with your parents. They refinanced the house and put it in Natalie's name to avoid foreclosure. She and Derek are making the payments now, and your parents are basically just living there as tenants. That was actually pretty smart of Natalie. I'd always underestimated her. What happened with Dad's case? He got 6 months probation and community service for the disorderly conduct. No jail time, thank God, but he has to check in with a probation officer every week. And when his supervisor at the warehouse found out about the arrest, they let him go. So Dad's unemployed now, at 60 years old. That was harsh, but not undeserved. Also, Rachel continued, they had to borrow money from everyone in the family to pay for the lawyer. Your Uncle Pete, your cousin Mark, even your grandmother dipped into her savings to help. Now they're all expecting to be paid back, but your parents don't have anything. It's caused a lot of tension in the family. I felt a mix of satisfaction and sadness hearing all this. Satisfaction because justice had been served, but sadness because my family was essentially gone now. Rachel, I'm not saying what they did was right, but they are still your parents. They stopped being my parents when they decided to forge my signature and steal my cabin. After we hung up, I sat in my condo looking out at the city lights, feeling oddly empty. My family was gone, but honestly, I wasn't sure it had been much of a family to begin with. It's been 8 months since I blocked my family's numbers, and I can honestly say I've never felt better about my life. I know that probably sounds cold, but it's the truth. For the first time in my adult life, I'm not constantly stressed about money or wondering what crisis my family is going to dump on me next. The money from selling the cabin completely changed my financial situation. I paid off my condo mortgage, which freed up $1,400 a month. Combined with not paying my parents' bills anymore, I suddenly had over $2,000 extra every month. I'd forgotten what it felt like to have money left over after paying bills. I started putting most of it into savings and investments, but I also decided to treat myself a little. I'd been driving the same beat-up Honda Civic for 9 years, and it was definitely on its last legs. So I went shopping for a new car, nothing crazy, but something reliable and nice. I ended up with a Subaru Outback that's only a year old. It was weird walking into that dealership and actually being able to afford what I wanted instead of just settling for whatever was cheapest. The salesman kept asking if I was sure I could handle the payments, and I just smiled and said I'd be paying cash. The best part, though, is the peace of mind. I didn't realize how much mental energy I'd been spending on my family's constant drama until it was gone. No more late-night calls about emergencies. No more guilt trips about being selfish when I couldn't help with whatever they wanted. No more walking on eggshells, trying not to upset anyone. I've been going to therapy too, which has helped tremendously. My therapist, Dr. Anderson, has been helping me understand how toxic my family dynamic really was. Apparently, there's a term for what they were doing to me: financial abuse. They'd conditioned me from a young age to believe that my worth as a family member was directly tied to how much money I could provide them. You weren't their daughter, Dr. Anderson told me during one of our sessions. You were their personal ATM that occasionally showed up for family dinners. That hit hard, but it was accurate. When I really thought about it, almost every conversation I'd had with my parents in recent years had involved them asking for money somehow. Help with the mortgage, help with car repairs, help with Natalie's wedding, help with medical bills. And when I couldn't help as much as they wanted, I was selfish and ungrateful. The therapy has also helped me realize that what they did wasn't just wrong, it was criminal. They were planning to commit fraud, forgery, and theft, and they made me feel like I was the unreasonable one for being upset about it. I've heard a few updates through Rachel, who still calls occasionally. She doesn't push me to reconcile with my family, which I appreciate. She just lets me know what's happening in case I want to know. Dad's probation ended last month, but he still hasn't found another job. Apparently, having an arrest record makes it hard to get hired anywhere decent. Mom's been working extra shifts at Target, but it's not enough to cover their expenses. Natalie had her baby, a little girl named Emma. Part of me felt sad when Rachel told me that, because I'm an aunt now and I'll probably never meet my niece. But then I reminded myself that Natalie made her choice when she decided to help steal from me. The most interesting update was that Natalie and Derek are having serious problems. Turns out living with your in-laws while trying to raise a newborn is incredibly stressful. Derek's been talking about moving out, but since Natalie owns the house now and my parents can't afford to live anywhere else, it's complicated. I have to admit, there's a part of me that feels vindicated by all this. They were so certain that stealing my cabin was the perfect solution to all their problems. Instead, they ended up worse off than before, and I'm thriving. Sometimes I wonder if I should feel guilty about how everything turned out. But then I remember how they laughed when they told me they were planning to forge my signature. I remember years of being treated like a bank account instead of a person. No, I don't feel guilty. I feel free. I've been thinking about buying another place eventually, maybe a small house with a yard where I can try gardening. I've always wanted to grow my own vegetables. It's funny how different my life feels now. 8 months ago, I was stressed constantly, barely making ends meet, and dealing with family drama every week. Now I'm planning gardens and thinking about taking a European vacation next summer. My coworkers have noticed the change too. My friend Amanda mentioned that I seem happier and more confident lately. When she asked what was different, I just told her I'd simplified my life by cutting out some toxic relationships. The hardest part is holidays and birthdays. I spent Christmas volunteering at a homeless shelter, which felt better than sitting alone in my condo feeling sorry for myself. And you know what? I met some really wonderful people there, people who understood what it meant to have family that let you down. I know some people would say I should try to reconcile, especially now that there's a baby involved. But based on what Rachel tells me, they still think I'm the villain in this story. They still think I'm selfish and cruel for not letting them steal my cabin. Until they can acknowledge that what they did was wrong, there's no point in trying to rebuild anything. Besides, I like my life now. I like having control over my own money and my own future. For the first time in my life, I'm truly free. And that's worth more than any family relationship built on manipulation and financial abuse. Sometimes the best thing you can do for yourself is walk away from people who only see you as a solution to their problems, even if those people happen to share your DNA. My name is Jarvis, and this is how I learned that sometimes family isn't about blood, it's about respect. And respect is something you have to demand, not something you can buy.